Is going on, Woodward Bets Nation? Beer and Scott back in the house on a Wednesday. Christmas right around the corner. We're here to break everything down in the sporting world, including our initial look at the NFL slate. We'll do our best. A lot of COVID issues across sports. But, Scott, as it says behind you, Santa has COVID. Seems like the whole world has COVID. Christmas rapidly approaching. We were talking pre-show about making sure you got enough gifts for the kids. Is it all balanced out? Do they all have enough stuff? Make sure I have enough stuff for the wife. So that the clock is ticking here. Christmas is becoming a little more stressful here with COVID. All the shopping, it's here. We're running out of time. How you doing, buddy?
Good. So the women all shop, after, the Black Friday, right after Thanksgiving. And this is where the dudes start to shop. This is where guys like me and you go out, Chris. When there's only 2 or 3 days left or one day, they should have a dude's Black Friday, like a few days before Christmas, just for us guys. I mean, no women allowed in the stores. Just leave us alone. Let us get our stuff through the half picked through shit that's left, and we'll figure it all out. So, to the rest of us, I'll see you in the stores in the next couple days. If you happen to see me, say hi, because I'm sure I'll be there too, buddy.
I will be out there for sure. And yeah, I've been the guy so many years, like Christmas Eve night, even like, hey, I'm that guy just trying to get any deals or, the best is when you're looking for like one of the best toys of the holiday for your kids. And they basically laugh you out of the store when you come in looking for anything good. Like, dude, you get what's left, everything that's ravaged through. Hopefully you find something that you like, but and something interesting happened to you today as well. Not Christmas related, not COVID related. A little encounter here of the third kind, maybe. What's going on?
Oh man, I'm telling you, I'm sitting around in the house, and all of a sudden, Chris, it literally sounded like somebody tried to run through my front window. Heard this loud boom. Thought, what the hell is that? I'm looking. I'm thinking, did somebody throw a ball or a football or something off my front window? And I happened to look down in the rock, and I'd be damned, Chris, it was like a 2-foot hawk crashed right into my front window. Must have hit my front window. And I was thinking, at first, is he just stunned? Is he dead? What's the deal here? And he's dead. The wicked hawk of the east over here is dead. All the squirrels are out front. They're dancing in the streets. They're having a party out there. Because I'll tell you what, man, you're out in my yard, and if you don't see any squirrels or birds, that hawk, he's a lurking, man. He's always around. But anytime this hawk's not around, it's party time around here with all the feeding stuff that all the neighbors have. But man, that freaked me out though. I mean, that was one of the loudest. Like, I'm surprised my window didn't break, and it literally left like a volleyball size mark on my window. Like the dude just literally smashed into my window. So I don't know what he saw in the window that made him look. I don't know if he's looking at my cat or what, but man, I never had anything like that happen. That was kind of freaky.
Yeah, tough demise, man. He made it through all these COVID strains, and it was almost to Christmas, and he finds his end on your front yard. So yeah, I've had some smaller birds do that, and even those will rattle the house. Like, what the hell was that? So you sent me a picture of this thing, and it's legit. I mean, this thing, I'm surprised, like you said, I didn't come crashing through your window. So you're lucky there. But yeah, celebration time for all of the hunted animals around there are all feeling great right now.
Yeah, I was gonna throw them out in the front yard and put a couple little tiki torches out there so all the little critters could see them because like I said, Chris, I didn't really notice it until one day my daughter said something, said, look at the hawk above, and there wasn't a squirrel to be found, not even a little bird, nothing. And then all of a sudden it's gone, and it's party time around my side. All the neighbors have squirrel feeders, little squirrel benches, bird feeders. Everybody's got something out, so it's just prime pickings over here for a predator like a hawk. That's for sure.
Yeah, they're gonna have a party in your neighborhood. You're gonna see more squirrel activity here over the next few days. The bully is gone, so congrats to all those squirrels. They certainly won their best bet here. That was on their wish list. But we are here again to break down the NFL slate. We'll get to that momentarily. Scott, let's get into some of the news and things before we do. Obviously, follow us on Twitter at Woodward Bets. Make sure you're following the network as well at Woodward Sports and catching all the great action here on the network. Shows all throughout the day. Hopefully you guys are diving into those and enjoying some of the entertainment there, but lots of good stuff going on here at Woodward Sports, and we're proud to be a part of it. Beers with Beer, we're going to try to fit that in here at some point this week. We're going to try to make sure we're here. I don't know the exact schedule for the holidays, but we will have some content for you for the Christmas Day NBA, NFL. We'll get you covered one way or the other here. So we'll figure that out, but we'll get a Beers with Beer. We just got to figure out when we're going to do that. Of course, we'll spotlight a local beer, a local brewery. Missed out on it while Scott was in Miami, but hey, we're back local, and we'll get that going. So, Scott, let's talk some
Beers from Beer. I was going to say, I couldn't afford to do a Beers from Beer down there in Miami, man. Woo-wee!
Yeah, that's you do it. Yeah, you buy if you're paying 18 for a Modelo, you go ahead and order you a craft beer. It's probably double that price down at the pool. So, hey, you'll come back here, you'll get the whole 4 or 6 pack for less than you were paying for one Modelo, no matter what I pick. So, be good to be back to normal. So, no Beastie today, but let's talk a little bit of hockey, Scott. We saw the NHL, canceling things throughout until after Christmas. Also, the big story, no Olympics here for these NHL players. So, no, it affects a lot of these Detroit Red Wings, guys like that. So, thoughts on the NHL kind of shutting things down for a few days here. The NBA came out and said, we're not stopping. Adam Silver came out and said, this is not going to go away. We have to learn how to deal with it. We're going to continue to play. The problem is you're going to start seeing like the backups to the backups to the backups. These teams are signing guys off the street. Brandon Knight, former Piston, back in the NBA. Saw his name out there today. Guys like Ersan Ilyasova. So we're hitting the recycle pile here just to make sure we have enough bodies. I don't know that that's the product people want to watch, but NHL says we're going to pause. The NBA says we're going to keep going. Thoughts on that? Is there a right way? Is there a wrong way? How are these sports handling this COVID stuff here over the next weeks, days? I think it's going to get worse before it gets better, certainly with the holidays here.
Well, I'll give Adam Silver a little bit of credit. It always seems like the NBA and he is ahead of the curve of what everybody else is ahead of. I mean, with the sports betting, everything. I give him kudos. I think Adam Silver's on the right track saying that, something we're going to have to live with, something we're going to have to deal with. I think these players all of a whole are relatively healthy. It seems like most of the issues with COVID are with older and maybe unhealthier individuals. But, that's here or there. What really it's about, I think, with the NHL more so than the NBA. I just think with all the different Canadian teams and Canadian players, and they have obviously dealing with 2 different governments. Yeah, I think the NBA with Toronto is something there. They may end up, who knows if they're going to end up moving some games. I think that could be a possibility there. But, it's interesting to see what goes on. And, I feel sorry for some of these younger NHL players. Chris, to me, if I'm an athlete, especially like a basketball or anything like that, I think the greatest thing that could happen to an athlete is to stand on the podium and hear your national anthem as you win the gold medal. So to me, that would be the pinnacle for me. I mean, any sport you play, I think that would be something that would be the top of the list for me. So, I understand some of these guys that are missing are going to have other opportunities. The bargaining agreement the NHL has is that they can play in the Olympics through 2026. So they'll have a chance one more in this current contract. I mean, guys like Dylan Larkin are affected. Mo Seidler's affected. Hronik's affected. Raymond for Sweden. So all these guys probably will get one more shot. But that's what I feel bad for, Chris. I mean, it's just, one time every 4 years. It's not like it's every year. In your lifetime, what are you going to get a chance at? 2 or 3 Olympics if you're a professional athlete at most, at most. So, yeah, I feel sorry for these guys. They deserve a chance to try to win a gold medal for their country.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like I said, that's, NHL championships are great, but the thought and the ability to go and represent your country, like I said, in a world stage, a big moment that some of these guys are going to miss out on. And again, doesn't come around very often, like you mentioned. So I hate to see that for sure. Football wise, we got another award here for the Detroit Lions. And I know you probably talked about it with Beastie, but what a win here. And Riley Patterson, special teams player of the week here for the Detroit Lions. So quick thoughts. We talked about the game. They were impressive. We haven't had a chance to talk about it yet. The whole Dan Campbell thing, I feel like they're on the right track. I don't know if you heard any of our discussion the other day, but with you and I back together here, thoughts on this award, thoughts on the game, thoughts about things moving forward here real quickly for the Detroit Lions.
I mean, good for the team for winning. I think it's good for him to win. I think it helps Dan Campbell's cause. I think what it is with Dan Campbell is we all understand he's never been a head coach. We don't know what kind of experience he has, and do we really know as outsiders how good he is at his job? And I think the part of that job is communicating with his players and getting them to buy into what he wants to do. And Chris, I think that win really helps solidify some of these players that could potentially be around later. It looks like these players actually do want to play for him. So, it's a totally different situation than like we saw with Urban Meyer at the end, like where these players, and you see these coaches who you can tell lost the team, the Chicago Bears with the Mike Nagy's and, obviously Urban Meyer. But I'll give Campbell credit. He kept the ship on the right course. He kept the players focused. They went out every week and are playing. And hey, let's see what happens if they give him some talent here. I mean, we know that talent level with that Lions roster is not there. So as far as the Lions as a fan, of course I was thinking, here you go again, going to give up some draft picks. But it's so hard to predict how good these guys are going to be. It doesn't mean you get the number one pick. It's the best player in the draft. We've seen it years and years and years out. I mean, look at the Red Wings. We're all bitching how they ended up with the fourth pick. And now it looks like we ended up with the best guy. So, you can't, it's just hard to predict how good these prospects will be. But good for the Lions for winning. Good for Dan Campbell. It looks like everybody's behind him. So, you know what? If you go into a job, maybe you're in over your head. But if your attitude's right and around your coworkers and they know you're trying and they're putting in the effort, everybody's going to support you. And Chris, I think that's what the situation is with Dan Campbell.
I agree. I think they're doing a great job, and you have to take the long-term view of it and a long-term approach. It's not going to be fixed overnight. It's not going to be fixed this year, but if you're taking the right steps, and I think that victory was a big step in the right direction to kind of stave off the fire him guy. I don't understand that logic to get rid of the guy before you even give him a chance. You knew this was a rebuild. Rebuilds don't happen in a year. It's probably more of a 4, 5, 6 year type thing. That's why these guys get that level of contract. Now, they don't always live up to it, but we went down this road the other day. So if you want to hear our thoughts on it, I believe that was on the Monday show with Beastie and I. So go check that out. Both had some pretty passionate thoughts here on the Lions. It's not my team. And Scott, during that show, I mentioned that's the beauty of what we're doing here is, Beastie's more of the optimistic Lions fan. You're more of the pessimistic Lions fan, and it's not even my team. So it's three different views of what's going on, but I feel like we're all in lockstep here that was a big moment, and we'll see how do they respond here moving forward here over the next couple of weeks. Will certainly be interesting, and I'll be in the house. Hopefully, if COVID's not wreaking havoc, my Packers coming to town that last game of the year, so I will be there checking that game out, getting a close eye. But we'll get into more NFL here momentarily. Want to give a shout out to Ferris State football winning the Division II national championship in a close game, Scott, 58-17. So they were really sweating that out there with Valdosta State. So congrats to the boys over at Ferris State for that Division II national championship.
Yeah, 14-0 record. Hey, anytime we can get a national champion here in the state of Michigan, it's always a great thing. And Chris, I spent many a drunk nights as that drunk bear in the bushes with that beer out there at Ferris State partying. I had a few buddies that went to Ferris State, so spent a lot of time over there drinking it up. So congrats to all those Bulldogs over there. I'm sure back, maybe even some of those frat houses weren't built yet around that campus, but back then I was in a few. Actually, one of my buddies played football over there, so we'd go over there and hoop it up quite a bit. So yeah, definitely that was going down back in my college days, that's for sure.
Love it for sure. It's a good time out there. I've never been personally. Haven't been in the state. It's home now, but college years I was still in Wisconsin, so I have not had the pleasure of visiting there. But sounds like a good time. So again, congrats to them. So Scott, it's Wednesday. We know what that means. KMA. I know you got some things on your mind. I know those Squirrels. KMA was that Hawk. He's gone, so it worked out for them. What are some KMAs you got working here on this Wednesday? What's got you tilted here? Time to sound off.
Man, I always like the KMA. It's like I feel like I get to just let it out, Chris. I can just tell everybody what's bullshit. And first of all, I want to tell any of you fools out there, if you're traveling and you're wanting to get off the plane out of your seat and try to run up like 10 aisles to get up closer, get out of the plane, you should literally be thrown out of the plane on your ass. Like, that is the most disrespectful thing I think that you could possibly do traveling. We're all in a bad mood as it is, listening to all the cranky kids and everybody whining to put up your mask. Come on, don't be that guy. I mean, if you got to get off the flight, why don't you let the flight attendant know you're rushing to get wherever else, and they'll be probably more than happy to help you. But I mean, come on, man. That's the one, Chris. It really had me tilted. It actually happened on the flight going to Miami, and I thought, are these people kidding me? But that one got me. And then, just out of fun, KMA to everybody in my home fantasy league since I'm not in the Final Four. But good luck to those of you who are in it. And Chris, one last thing. I don't know. I know you have a dog. I don't know if you have a cat, but I'm
I've had
about ready to
cats.
tell
I've,
my
I've
cat.
had cats.
Oh my God, man. It tears up my Christmas tree to no end, man. There's bulbs all over the ground. They're under my couch, under my chair. You're sitting there and then he's like halfway up in the tree. The tree's wobbling. It's like if you don't have a sturdy Christmas tree, it's just toast. But yeah, so that silly cat of mine, he's driving me crazy so far this year, Chris. I mean, the minute this Christmas is done, I got to take this tree down because he is driving me nuts. He's going to hang himself in one of these lights, and I'm going to laugh at him.
Yeah, they love to bat at the little ornaments that are hanging there. So yeah, I've had cats. It's never worked out. I've tried. I grew up with cats, so I've tried multiple different cats for one reason or the other. They just don't work out. They start going outside the box, and that's an easy. You got to go when that happens. So wife grew up with dogs, so we have a dog now, but probably done with cats for a while here. So. KMA, I know nobody cares about other people's fantasy teams, Scott, but I had a pretty loaded team that this week was a disaster. So I'm gonna obviously in all fun, I'm sending out KMAs here, but listen to some of these names on this team and could barely muster up 100 points here. Taysom Hill, Russell Wilson was terrible. T. Higgins, Joe Mixon literally did nothing in that game in Denver. James Conner under 10 points. Odell Beckham, nothing. 7 yards on one catch last night. Lamar Jackson doesn't play. Dalvin Cook literally does nothing. So pretty loaded team here, Scott. And my opponent barely beat me without scoring anything, but he's advancing. So congrats to him. But KMA basically to this entire week of football. I mean, what a disaster in the NFL with COVID, underperforming players. Just one of them weeks that we're ready to move on from. But any final thoughts here on the NFL last week? Because it was a disaster for me. Had some pretty good teams go down in the playoffs, advance some other teams. Best balls, some advanced, some didn't. So all in all, decent week. But that team in particular, just a lot of disappointment last week.
I mean, I'll tell you what was the crazy part was when I was down in Miami. I mean, I'm literally with there was 91 players that had the 200 seats. And Chris, everywhere you'd go, that's all you'd hear over here, or you'd be in the conversation. Who's out now? Who's missing now? Who's in now? Who's out? That's all anybody could talk about. I mean, that was quite bizarre. But I mean, even if you looked at some of the players who had some great matchups, they didn't perform at all. So it was just a really bizarre week. But I'll say this, man, the NFL should be really happy that there's fantasy football and sports betting because that product they've been putting out in these last few months of this season has just been awful. I don't think football has been up to par this year as far as the product they're putting out. We keep seeing these quarterbacks playing that they're literally calling out from the grocery store or off their couch or calling these guys Netflix because they're on their home, sitting at home watching, whatever they're doing. And, next thing you know, they're out and starting in an NFL job. So, yeah, I get it. Times are messed up, but the NFL maybe should take an NBA approach and just say, no testing for certain players unless you have symptoms or whatever the deal is. They need to kind of loosen that up a little bit. Because for me, I mean, how does a guy like Goff go out? They plays quarterback in an NFL game for 48 minutes or 60 minutes, and then you're going to tell the next day he's out, with the cold. I mean, to me, how do you go from being able to perform like that and the next day you're out? Like, I mean, he obviously didn't have symptoms. So Yeah, I think that the NFL, I think some of these COVID rules have kind of bit the NFL in the butt as far as the product has been.
Yeah, and I see a lot of people out there bashing season long. Obviously DFS has become more and more popular, and it is a fun way to play. You build the team for the week. You can avoid, some of the landmines. You know the injuries. You can select your team, but I still have a fond part of my, a fond appreciation of season long. I still enjoy the game, and when people say, "Well, you put in all this work," and then it comes to this week, and stuff happens. Guess what? That happens in life too. Whatever you're doing, you can put in a lot of work on something, and it gets knocked over. You can put in a lot of work as a football team. COVID wreaks havoc, and maybe you miss the playoffs. I mean, that's part of it. It happens, and there's also the people out there that benefit when things like that happen. There's the guy that beat me, or guys all across some of these fantasy leagues that survived somehow, some way. They're moving on. So there's always two sides to a coin. So I think if people don't like season long, I'm not going to push it on you, but I still think it's a fun version. Yes, it's a lot of work, but I still enjoy it personally. But I just find that funny that people say this is why you don't play season long. That's the guy who's advancing to the championship. He's pretty happy about his season long team. So just interesting that people are always out there throwing that narrative around.
Yeah, but when the draft comes around, Chris, so many people, I mean, that's like one of the biggest buzzes of the sports year is when the fantasy football season's about to start. When you're a few weeks before Labor Day there, everybody, I just think that that is such a big event as far as all the players. That'll never go away. We've been hearing baseball season long players bitching about that for how long, even before DFS came out. And baseball made it. Baseball's still around some season long leagues that I know. Maybe not as many as there once was. But I mean, I know I don't play the season long, but I still know people who do. I know it's a big thing. But hey, if baseball hasn't been affected yet, I surely don't think NFL would be affected. But I think it's a different alternative, though, to your season long league. And I think, Chris, my season long league actually has a friends mode on FanDuel, and we all play each other for 25 bucks a week. We have a good time. It keeps your standings and keeps your stats, who has the most points, who has the most wins, who's done this. So, it's just another form. You want to talk shit with your buddies. Yeah, you got lucky. You don't have any injuries, but let's look at the DFS charts where I'm up on top beating you fools by 200 points. That's a little bit form a different way you can kind of have some funs with your buddy. But yeah, I think the season longs are getting some unjust ribbing or fun made fun of or whatever. I don't think it'll never go away.
No, I mean, and a big part of it is keeping those groups together. Like, yeah, DFS has some of that, no doubt. Too, like you mentioned, there are groups that play, but keeping groups of friends together for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and sometimes it's the league that is the only reason that some of these people are still together. Not that they're not friends, but people start spreading out, and it's always I'm in a bunch of different leagues where some of these people I only see once a year, but it's phenomenal to see them all and get everybody together for that draft. So again, people don't like it? I'm not gonna push it. You do you. That's always my outlook on things. But many ways to play this game of ours. So just pick what you like and stick with that. So Scott, before we
I'll tell
break
you
down
what, Chris, real quick. My fantasy league is from all guys I went to high school with from the class of 1990 and 1991. So we were literally all buddies. And still, here we are. We started when we were in college, like maybe 2 years in. We used to send mail to each other out of USA Today. So it's come a long way. We always joke, damn, we should have been buying some of these fantasy football sites. We'd all be rich. But you're exactly right. If we didn't have our fantasy party, usually every championship Sunday, we go somewhere and we party it up and we all spend our $5 a week on pickup money. We have beer, some food, and we all hang out. And without that, Chris, I'm telling you, as a guy who's been involved for 30 years, yes, there's probably 2/3 of the league I wouldn't speak to anymore. I would feel safe to say, and this fantasy league definitely has keep us together for 30 years, which I think is quite impressive, and it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's the part we tend to forget about sometimes. So I'm glad to see those long-time leagues going, and I don't think they're slowing down anytime soon. So before we get back to the NFL and break down the slate here, we're going to take a look at the main slate, and we're going to cover all the games on the different days. Again, we'll have you covered for those Christmas Day games. We'll cover Thursday night football tomorrow. we'll focus on the main slate. Let's talk a little bit of NBA here, Scott. And again, trying to navigate through the injuries and COVID here, 6 games on the docket. So we'll go through some of the injuries and guys that are out that we know. So brace yourself. It's a long list, but I want to get all these names out there. For Atlanta, a couple big names are going to be missing tonight. Star guard Trae Young, big man Clint Capella. So a lot of usage to some of the John Collins is going to have to step up. DeLon Wright looking like a phenomenal value play. No Giannis for Milwaukee here tonight, so that's going to open things up. Obviously for Middleton, Holiday, guys like that. No De'Aaron Fox once again for Sacramento. No Jared Allen for Cleveland, so some big man minutes open there. No Evan Mobley as well. So Kevin Love, guys like Dean Wade are going to get a bump. No Al Horford once again for Boston. Colin Sexton also on that injury report for Cleveland remains out. No Mo Bamba for Orlando. Kevin Porter Jr. will remain out for Houston. No Bobby Portis for Milwaukee. Questionable tags right now on guys like Christian Wood, Cole Anthony, Wendell Carter Jr., and Aaron Gordon. So, Scott, that's just the big names. I mean, we could rattle off 50 more names that are out for one reason or the other here. So let's try to find the people some plays here. Bets, that's going to be at the end of the show. So if you're looking for some NBA bets, so we will finish the show with some best bets. But thoughts on the DFS player pool with the guys we have left. Who are you targeting for your lineups tonight?
I mean, is anybody playing tonight? I mean, are we going to have to lace them up here or what? I'm ready.
I still got some game. There we go.
I mean, I still could shoot. I don't know if I could drive the basket anymore or be playing defense, but I mean, with what you're saying, I think DeLon Wright is a guy with Atlanta. I mean, like you mentioned, who's going to get a majority of those the touches and the usage? I think John Collins is a guy you can look at. I think he's somebody. I mean, Joker is probably going to be the spend up tonight there at center. He's 11-4 on FanDuel. That's a pretty high price, but I think you're going to have to look at that. But Cole Anthony maybe for the Magic. I like Franz Wagner as well. But, yeah, so we're just going to have to keep our ear to the ground, see if there's any more news that we're going to have to pay attention to that might open up some of these low price options for us. But especially in Atlanta, I think that's where you're going to have to really focus and figure out where where you're going to be. But Wright for me is a guy that's interesting. And then, like I mentioned, I don't know if that Rondo is going to get in there. Maybe Goodwin, Lou Williams, somebody like that. But definitely do like Collins as well.
Yeah, DeLon Wright, it's almost hard to not play him tonight. Grades out very well here as a value play. So you're playing cash games. He's probably the first guy in your lineup. And then you look at the spend ups. I think Jokic makes a lot of sense. I mentioned Halliburton as a guy with no De'Aaron Fox. He's got to take that much more on his plate. Middleton and Drew Holiday get a huge bump without Jokic or Giannis in that lineup. So those are some guys that you can look to. If Paul George plays tonight, anytime Kawhi is out, he's certainly a guy that you can look at. More value in the Bucks with a guy like Grayson Allen. Reggie Jackson is intriguing in the mid-range. So there are guys. We're going to lose more, Scott. It's going to happen. So we try to give our thoughts here. Those are some of the main plays here. But as I always say, be plugged in to the news here. But DeLon Wright, those Milwaukee guys, those Sacramento guys, including Buddy Hield, who I didn't mention, and John Collins, DeLon Wright here for Atlanta, looking like some of the primary plays here in NBA DFS. So we'll come back with some bets here, navigate those waters, give you some winners there. But, Scott, let's get into the NFL here. Give our initial look on this main slate of games. We'll start with Buffalo and New England here in our first game. And what a game to start with. I mean, this is a massive game for the Buffalo Bills. We got New England minus 2.5, 41.5 on the total here. So a huge spot for Josh Allen and the boys. Can they go into Foxborough and get this W they desperately need here to stay alive in this divisional race?
Man, how mad do you think they are from that Monday night game still that they basically, I mean, let's be real. I think they were embarrassed, that being the Bills, Monday night with what Bill Belichick and the Patriots did to them, just running so many times, did not throw the ball. I mean, we heard a couple of interviews, with some Bills players afterward that, about the situation. They were not happy. So I think you're going to get a really mad, fired up Bills team here So I mean, I do like some Josh Allen. I think, especially with his rushing ability, I think he's a guy you're really going to have to look at. But it's kind of hard to pair him. He spreads the ball out quite a bit. Now we've seen Gabe Davis coming on. It doesn't. I'm not sure if Sanders is going to get back out there. We've seen Diggs get involved quite a bit. They don't really use the running back, so it's like they got a funnel offense. They're just going to end up throwing. It's going to be who is Belichick going to try to take out? It's going to be obviously going to be Diggs. So I think that's going to leave guys like Dawson Knox available here. But Josh Allen too in DFS recently, Chris. I think we've talked about it a couple times, but I don't mind playing Josh Allen naked by himself because in that way, you got his rushing upside, and then you get ability to get those touchdowns. But New England there, I mean Stevenson, he's been running pretty. He's been looking good here recently, running well. I do like Stevenson. I'm not sure if Harris is going to be able to get back out there, but if not, I think Stevenson's a play I'd look at, and Hunter Henry is another guy. He's been scoring quite a bit at home. Seems like most of his touchdowns are coming at home. So I do like him in this spot too.
Yeah, injury-wise, Damian Harris, like you mentioned, was present at practice today. No De'Mondre Stevenson at practice. So present, it's always one of those words like when they use available to play, it really doesn't tell us much. So at least he was there. A good sign there. We know Kendrick Bourne on the COVID-19 list, along with Cole Beasley on the other side. And then questionable tags on Sanders, like you mentioned, got a limited practice in. Nelson Aguilar and N'Keal Harry. So New England could be down some receivers, and that may put a guy like Brandon Bolden more in play here. The tight ends, like you mentioned, could become a lot more important here in this game as well. So, again, a situation we'll have to watch as we get closer. Any initial bets? It's going to be tough. I'm just going to put it out there. I wouldn't be betting games this early in the week. You're messing with fire. Normally, we love to find the early edges if a line looks off, but you get early on this game and something happens to Josh Allen or Stephon Diggs, and then that bet's not looking so good. So, Scott, I think this is a week that you should probably tread with caution. As much as I hate to wait until Sunday to find the lines, but there's just too many risks, too many dominoes in play here. But if you can give some thoughts if you have them, but I think the best bet is to wait on these spreads. But any initial thoughts on this one?
Yeah, in these times, I got to agree with you. But I will note here, the Bills are 4-1-2 against the spread in their last 7 meetings in New England. They're obviously playing well there. I mean, for that to be the record, we obviously know Tom Brady was included in that for New England. So the Bills have done a pretty good job the last 7 years up there. And the road team is 18-6-2 against the spread in their last 26 meetings. And we obviously saw New England cover on the road already. So, man, Chris, everything's pointing to the Bills here getting a W. So I think I'm going to tend to agree. I think I'm going to take the Bills here, getting the +2.5. I just think they're just fired up. I think they've just been looking forward to this game here, and I'm going to take that edge here.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Buffalo is the better of the two teams. I know New England's been playing some good football, but let's just kind of go through them as if things are going to stay as they are. And if it is as it is right now, I'm agreeing with you. I like Buffalo to win this game. So if I can get a nice money line price on them, I think that's the route I want to go. It's such a big game for them. And I think they answer the bell here. As good as Belichick and company have been, I'm liking Buffalo in the spot. Next game, Giants and Philadelphia. So this one not as exciting, obviously. The Giants kind of swirling down. No Daniel Jones now. We'll miss the remainder of the season here. This thing opened up at Philadelphia -8.5. We're as high as 10.5 in some spots, and the total falling as you'd expect down to 40.5. So, Scott, thoughts on this one? Obviously, Jalen Hurts always a guy that we can look to against this Giants team, no doubt. Injury-wise here, let me run through some of the names. Saquon Barkley, questionable here for the Giants. So if he's out, Booker becomes a phenomenal play. Kadarius Toney, COVID-19. Sterling Shepard was placed on IR, so we won't see him this week. And those are the big names right now with injury tags. So thoughts here? Feels like a spot Philadelphia should roll pretty easily at home against the Giants.
Yeah, the Giants beat them 13-7 in Week 12, and they haven't done anything much since. And, I mean, the Eagles just are going to come off a short week. They just obviously beat Washington last night. So, for me, though, I saw a stat today, Chris, I thought was interesting. In the last, 5 weeks, the Eagles have outrushed their opponent like 1,000 to 500 or something like that. So they're literally out rushing their opponents 2 to 1. So I think that that was pretty interesting just to see how big of a gap they have in between. I think that's just going to continue here with Jordan Howard, Sanders, and everybody else. I think the only question here is, Chris, is Sanders finally going to break this most touches without a touchdown? I mean, he's like 3 times the touches than the other guys have had. In what I saw for the longest streak without a touchdown in between touches, and it's like he's way ahead of everybody. So maybe they'll get one to Sanders here. I'm sure he's probably talking it up behind the scenes that I need a touchdown. Everybody, come on, let's get it going.
So he's the Jacoby Myers now. I mean, we had the running Jacoby Myers joke for weeks and weeks and weeks. He didn't find the end zone. Finally got it done. So maybe this is the week. As far as a bet goes here, if things stay the way they are, I think the Eagles win handily here. We saw them handle Washington. They only won by 10 there. I thought they'd win by a little bit more in that one, but I think the Eagles likely to play here, maybe even an underplay with as bad as that Giants offense looks, especially if they're going to be without Saquon Barkley. So next game, we got the Rams and the Minnesota Vikings here. Rams handling business last night. Minnesota, of course, handling business in Chicago. The other night, injury-wise, Adam Thielen remains questionable here. For Minnesota, Alexander Mattison was activated off the COVID list. So it sounds like he will be back in that Minnesota lineup. Not that he's much of a play without Dalvin Cook being injured. And that's pretty much the injury report right now. Tyler Higbee, we know, still dealing with some COVID issues. So thoughts here, Scott? It's a big game for Minnesota. Very much still in the playoff race here. A home game. Rams -3 in this one. Pretty high total. So we're certainly going to be targeting guys. And Cooper Kupp, namely, man, he killed me in one league. I was going against Cooper Kupp, and that was, RIP. You're not winning that, surviving that. But the numbers this guy is putting up, clearly going to be a first-round draft pick in those season-long leagues we talked about, up to 9,100 on DraftKings. Do we go to that well once again here in this game against the Vikings?
I mean, at 9,100, Chris, he almost pretty much has to score 2 touchdowns, or you're not going to get his value. I mean, that's the problem. But yeah, damn. I mean, this dude has been incredible so far. I mean, and you think about some of these other guys, these other receivers that they're comparing him to, like Devontae Adams or some of these other Jefferson in the same game. Stafford and Kupp have only been together for a year, and it looks like they've been playing together for 10 years. I mean, some of these throws that Stafford is making is incredible. But I think that just goes to show you, too, that the quarterbacks do matter quite a bit. I mean, Stafford, that throw he made to Kupp where he scored that last touchdown over the middle there, when they showed that a view what Stafford had, I don't even know where he was looking at, what he was throwing at. He was just throwing it to an area, and I think he either thought Kupp was going to get it up high or that ball was going to go down low, because if you see the replay, Beckham was sliding right there at the goal line, where I think Beckham would have caught the ball down low, literally at the goal line as well. So I think Stafford just threw it in an area he knew 2 of his receivers were crossing, and if it gets there, it gets there. So I think that was interesting, but Kupp is just amazing. But I think this game here is going to be interesting too, though, Chris. I mean, last night I was all over Sony Michel. I can't believe he did not get in the end zone. I was all over the plus 155, and I looked around, and DK had it at plus 110. So it was literally a 45-cent difference. But I had another parlay with Jordan Howard to score with Jefferson, and it was a pretty juicy one. But neither of them ended up getting the end zone. They had many chances, but so Michelle got all the carries in that game over Henderson. Everybody thought Henderson was going to come right in and be that lead back. So it's going to be interesting now with this weekend. They got a short week, obviously, playing out last night. So it's going to be interesting there. I think I might have to stay away from these running backs here, even in this spot here for the Rams. And I think you just got to kind of focus on this passing game here, because I think that running situation could go either way. I think there's a spot here where Henderson could get most of the carries now that he's been back a week or so after his COVID layoff there. So I think that is something we're going to have to pay attention to. And Chris Jefferson on the other side of that ball, I mean, I think that guy is going to end up being one of the best receivers in football, compared to some of the greats. I think this kid is special. He's something else to watch. I I enjoy watching him. I have him on a couple of my fantasy teams, and he is just always open. Cousins looks for him, but yeah, I think it's a great matchup. Cup and Jefferson. That's a lot of. I think most people who have these guys are probably at this stage in their fantasy season. So now they're colliding. So we'll see who passes through. And if you have both of them on your team, congratulations.
You better still be alive, or you've really had a lot of injuries take their toll on your team.
Right.
But I mean, Cup, we're talking about Jerry Rice level performances here. I mean, those are the numbers that we're comparing with Cooper Kupp. I think he's already got 122 receptions. It's unbelievable. So Jefferson, like you mentioned, just makes it look easy. I mean, the guy just glides around the field and makes difficult catches. So a bright future there indeed. And Sony Michel is a guy I talked about. I don't know what platform, what video it might have been on, but it feels like this is the direction that they want to go. Is they got to know by now. Darrell Henderson is great, but he's a great change of pace. He's not going to be able to handle that full workload. So I agree. It's tough to play either of these guys, but Michel, I think, is going to be more of that early down grinder for them with Henderson sprinkling in with his big playability, his ability in the passing game. So makes it tough to play these guys in DFS, especially with the price coming up on Michel when he was a little bit cheaper. It was easier, but I certainly agree there. As far as a bet goes, I lean the Rams here. I just think they're the much better team. I know Minnesota's back is against the wall, but I'll take the Rams. So let's move on. Tampa Bay and Carolina here. Speaking of back against the wall, Tampa Bay shut out in that game against New Orleans. So you're going to hear a lot of angry Tom. That's going to be a trending topic this week. Going to take out his frustrations on this Carolina defense. The problem is, God, I don't know who he's going to throw to. Now, we do get Antonio Brown back. Initially, it sounds like they weren't going to bring him back at all, but I think that situation has obviously changed here with losing Chris Godwin for the season. Mike Evans going to be out a couple weeks. Leonard Fournette likely to miss a couple weeks here as well. So that's arguably their three best offensive players outside of Brady. So Brown becomes one hell of a play here. 4,900 on DraftKings. I wish they would have priced him up a little bit more. He's going to be very, very popular if he is the number one receiver. Obviously, a guy like Gronk gets a big bump. In that backfield, Ronald Jones is only 5,100 here. So a lot of ways that you can go with this Tampa team. Carolina side, tough to trust anybody over there in a tough matchup here with the Bucs as such big underdogs here. 11 points on the spread right now.
Yeah, them poor Bucks here. They get shut out, and then they literally all of their star players on offense seem to hit that injury report. Obviously, we know Godwin's going to be out for the rest of the year. Evans, it sounds like he's trending to playing, so I think that is going to help him. But Ronald Jones is going to be an interesting guy this week. I think he's going to just fill right in for that role for Fournette. So I think he's a guy you got to look at. His projections are around 100 yards and a touchdown. And then I think the only guy that really Brady's going to be really comfortable throwing to. I mean, you can maybe argue Antonio Brown, but we know it's Gronk. I think he's going to look at Gronk in the red zone. I think his chances of scoring a touchdown are going to be really high. And actually, I'm going to look at what his touchdown props are, anytime touchdown props, because I think that's the guy that Brady's going to have to go to. Because, I mean, they used to have Fournette even to lean on. So I think he's going to have to look at a guy like Gronk there. So I think that's interesting. And then on the other side, Carolina, I mean, that offense to me is, I mean, Cam Newton, I just can't buy in. I mean, he's just back there because they really had no other options, I feel. I don't see him being with them next year. I'm not a fan at all. Chuba Hubbard has not been productive at all here in these last few games. So, I mean, he has fallen in the end zone that one game, but I just don't think he's going to have any luck there. I mean, Tampa Bay is still in the 11th and giving up running back points. They usually do struggle against the quarterback, but Chris, I can't put anything here into Cam Newton. So, but another guy, Perryman, might be interesting too for a pretty cheap receiver that you might be able to use in DFS.
Yeah, we'll see. If Evans is back, that certainly impacts everybody. I agree with the thoughts on Gronk. Again, Brown, Scotty Miller, I mean, Cameron Brate. I think there's a lot of guys that could pay off some value here, even when they're down a few pieces. So interesting game there nonetheless, but feels like Tampa Bay should roll in that one. Next game, we got Jacksonville and the Jets. This one we don't need to spend a ton of time on here. Injuries, those Jets receivers, obviously, Elijah Moore, Corey Davis on IR. Actually, Moore was shifted to the COVID-19 list. Carlos Hyde placed on IR by the Jacksonville Jaguars. So, Scott, this one kind of ugly. James Robinson's intriguing in a great matchup here with the worst team in the league against the run. I think we can kind of speed through this one. Outside of him, I'm not seeing much in this game to write home about.
Yeah, for sure. Robinson's interesting. Obviously, we know we've all been everybody attacks the Jets on the ground, so nothing will change here. Darrell Bevel, now the coach over there at Jacksonville, obviously we know as the Lions offensive coordinator these past few years, he likes to run. So Robinson for me is probably a guy that I'm gonna play on most of my DFS teams this week, unless something drastic changes. And I mean, maybe Michael Carter you could look at. I think the Jets really like him. I mean, this is two shitty teams. We need the Jets to win as Lions fans if we want to still maintain that number one pick. So Jacksonville is actually favored here, but we'll see here. I think this is a pretty shitty game, and both running backs are intriguing, but Robinson for me all day.
Yeah, for sure. In a good spot. So I don't mind going back to that. Well, all right, let's talk the local team. Scott, Detroit heading to Atlanta to take on the Falcons. Atlanta -5.5 here. Small total at 42.5. Some good news. DeAndre Swift, Jamal Williams back at practice. So, if they're back in that lineup, DeAndre Swift heading back down to Georgia, I think you get a nice little narrative play and will be a welcome addition back to this lineup here. We'll see what's going on with Jared Goff. We know he's dealing with some issues with COVID-19. Heard him on an interview the other day. Says he feels great. Sounds like he's all right, but we'll have to watch that as well. So, thoughts here again, if those running backs are back, I think you feel a little bit better about this team, and I think Swift would make for a great play here. 6,300 this week on DraftKings.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Swift wants to get out there and play, but Campbell would be smart to leave one of their best offensive weapons on the sidelines the rest of the season. I think I would just leave him out. Campbell's calling him week to week. So he isn't hitting too many of the projections, but Reynolds, I mean, he's filled in decently. He didn't score a touchdown, but I mean, he did have 110 yards. So, I mean, that was a pretty good week. But I think the thing that's been surprising for me is Amon St. Brown. I mean, that guy has just been an absolute stud. Goff loves the guy. So if Goff is in this week, I think St. Brown's a guy we're going to have to look at playing. If you look at his numbers recently, I mean, they're up there with some of the top receivers in NFL. So, that's an interesting play. And I mean, we're in Detroit, we're on a shitty team. Unless you're really digging deep, people aren't going to really be paying attention to St. Brown. So that's why I do like him. Atlanta, I mean, you always got to look at Patterson. We can almost be assured that Patterson's going to score a touchdown against the Lions. It's almost inevitable. So we'll see about that. But all that offense pretty much is filtered through him. We'll have to see about the Lions are 18th in points against giving up the tight end. So maybe this is finally a game that Pitts finally scores once or twice. But yeah, I think St. Brown for me is an interesting play here that I've been on the last few weeks, and I think I'm going to continue to pay attention to that guy.
As far as the bet goes, I like the Lions. So once again, especially if they get any of these guys back, but they're going to stay competitive. We've talked about that all season long. The record certainly backs our claim. And I don't think Atlanta's that good. I don't think they've won a game at home all season, which I find very surprising here in the NFL. Usually that was an advantage for them. So I think Detroit can at least keep this game close, potentially beat this Falcons team. Detroit's playing with a lot of heart. Atlanta, not so much here recently. So I like the Lions once again this week. So next game, we got the Chargers and the Houston Texans here. A big number here. On the Chargers, as we'd expect, approaching 10, middling total at 45.5. Injury-wise in this one, let's see, we got some news on Austin Eckler, questionable for the Chargers, so we'll see if he's able to give it a go this week. Would obviously be in a great spot as a guy you certainly want to spend up on. David Johnson, also questionable on the Houston side, and that's pretty much it for the injuries here. So we will have to keep an eye on Austin Eckler here, Scott, but if he's in there, tough to not like him against this Houston defense this week.
Yeah, Eckler's just such a touch hog. I mean, he's getting most of pretty much all of that offense other than, Keenan Allen, seems to come and go from time to time. I mean, he's still getting his 10 targets, but it just seems Eckler's the guy there. So I want Eckler in this situation. Obviously, Houston's terrible coming off that win. I don't see them winning this game. It's a really bad spot. Davis Mills. I mean, Cooks broke out last week and had a fabulous game, leading receiver. But I mean, Cooks is the only guy I think we've said it over and over that we'd even think about playing on Houston from week to week. But Keenan Allen, I mean, he has scored the last 2 weeks. You know, he's had 80+ yards. I mean, it's not a high ceiling game, but he seems to be a consistent guy that you can throw in there and expect at least, you know, like maybe 15 points, something like that. But obviously, to win a tournament or something else, you need these guys to break out and get 2 touchdowns. But yeah, I think Eckler's a guy here that they're going to want to lean on today. And Houston is 27th against the running back, so obviously everything's lined up there, Chris. So we can't argue about that.
Yeah, no doubt. I don't even hate Herbert, the passing game. I think the Chargers certainly way to go. Houston, it's Brandon Cooks or bust. Every week we saw him have another big game last week against Jacksonville, but those have been very hit and miss. The running backs I'm away from. All aboard the Chargers here for me in DFS. As far as a bet goes, I'm going to wait and see if Eckler's in there, but I think Chargers probably win this one pretty easily. All right, next game, Baltimore and the Cincinnati Bengals here up next. Cincinnati, small 2.5-point favorites here, 45.5 on the total. We'll see if Lamar Jackson able to be back in that lineup. If not, I mean, Huntley looked pretty damn good, up to 6K now on DraftKings. So that's certainly, I hate to say there's not much of a drop-off, but he looked every bit the part in that game against Green Bay and won a lot of people a lot of money last week. So we'll keep an eye on that. Joe Mixon, questionable here for the Cincinnati Bengals. Just has not been the same guy here over the last couple weeks. So still dealing with that ankle injury. Was practicing today, so that's a good sign. But tough to trust him here lately. Are you willing to go back to that? Well, if Lamar's out, do we think we get another Huntley game? Or are people chasing points there? Very intriguing game here with the Ravens and the Bengals.
Yeah, very intriguing. I mean, normally when you think about these two teams, you know, you would think, oh, here it is, you know, AFC North matchup, and you know it's going to be cold. These teams run, they play good defense. You know, that's generally what we think about. But I think that's changed. Both these teams have pretty decent quarterbacks, and you're right. I was really impressed with Huntley. And matter of fact, Chris, I'm pretty sure my buddy who I went with, we talked at length about Huntley. That was my pick. But when we found out that you couldn't late swap and we weren't sure if Jackson was out or not, couldn't take that risk. And then we had to sit there and watch and know exactly what we talked about play out right in front of our face. We said we thought he was going to run it for 2 touchdowns, and that would put us, you know, up in the high end of that DFS, you know, final there. But he did come through. So I think this game, I think Huntley, if Huntley's in there, I think Andrews is a guy you almost got to play. I mean, those two have such a connection already. It just seems like he's so comfortable going to Huntley, or he's going to pull it down and run. So that seems like what that offense is going to be in that situation. But on the other side, man, Burrow. I mean, Burrow's in a good spot here. This Ravens defense has not been the typical Ravens defense. They're in the bottom handful of teams in the league for giving up points against quarterback. They're 17th about giving up points to wide receivers. And, you know, guy like Jamar Chase, Higgins, I think these guys are all in pretty good spots here. I think Burrow's in a good spot. As you mentioned, the running game hasn't been what it once has been ever since Mixon sprained that ankle last week or 2 weeks ago. So yeah, definitely interested in the Cincinnati passing game. I think Burrow has potential to maybe throw up 3 or 4 touchdowns here. I think this game, Chris, to me, this over-under is in a spot here where I love the over. I mean, over 44.5, 45. I think this game has potential to go way over that. This is a game here I think is a sneaky DFS game to stack up.
Yeah, I like this one as well. I think a lot of people are going to look at it, like you mentioned, a divisional battle. These teams know each other well. I tend to stay away from those games, but I think there's a lot of playable pieces here, a lot of stacks, a lot of ways to run it back. So this is a game you can get very creative with. So I'm a fan here as well. As far as a bet, I lean Cincinnati here at home. I think they take care of business, especially if Lamar Jackson is out. I think you could see Huntley struggle a little bit here on the road. Not an easy place to play. So Bengals for me initially here. A couple notes on Carolina. I know we've already talked about them, but now it's Cam Newton will be the starter. Sam Darnold is back, though, and they're saying he will get some work. So I don't think we want to play Cam anyway. Yeah, he gives you 1 rushing touchdown a week, but that's really about all you've gotten out of him, and no practice for DJ Moore today there with Carolina as well. So he'll be a game time decision. We'll have to keep an eye on. So let's wrap it up. 3-game afternoon slate, Scott. We'll start with Chicago and Seattle here. Seattle pushing -7 here on this one. 6.5 sitting at some spaces. So 43 on the total. Injury-wise, we'll see if we get Tyler Lockett back. He was not able to play in that game against the Rams. Justin Fields, questionable here for the Chicago Bears. So we'll see what's going on there with him, dealing with a little bit of an ankle injury. Limited practice today for Justin Fields. Andy Dalton on the COVID list, so they may be reaching deep into their pockets on quarterbacks. We know Alex Collins also placed on the COVID list for the Seattle Seahawks last week, has not been activated yet. So what do we do here, Scott? So Russell Wilson let me down. DK Metcalf has been probably one of the bigger disappointments, but maybe a get-right spot here at home against these Bears.
Yeah, especially with all these COVID issues. We'll see how deep it gets into their starting defense. But especially if they don't have quarterbacks, then you fear, turnovers, short fields. And then at that point, I think you're going to kind of have to look at Penny. I mean, he looked pretty good last week. This is another team, though, that's coming off a short week, and they're going to have to bounce back. Good thing they are at home. But I think that Penny's interesting here. I couldn't click on DK. I mean, he's been frustrating as can be. Everett's been pretty decent, though. He seems to look for him, especially in the red zone. But if Lockett's back, I think that's a really good spot for Lockett. The Bears are 26 against wide receiver. We know he looks to him. It seems like he has the big play ability, most games to where he's busting through and you see him scoring a long touchdown. So I don't mind Lockett. But on the Bears side, I think an interesting one, Chris, is Montgomery. I mean, Seattle's 31st against the running back. Montgomery, yeah, he's only scored 4 touchdowns on the year, but he's had 80 yards. He's got a role every week. He's got a role as a receiver. He's had, the last 3 games, he's had 19 receptions. I mean, he's a guy that that is the main guy. So I think he's really interesting play. I don't think a lot of people are going to click on him. But I think that is especially, I mean, I think it'd be a better play if one of his top 2 quarterbacks are playing, obviously, so they don't have to focus on the run. But if all is good there in Chicago, I think Montgomery is a guy that is very interesting.
Yeah, I don't hate that play at all. And we know he can get involved in the passing game as well. So Seattle, not quite as bad as the Jets, but they're right there. One of the worst teams against the run. You just worry about if they get out to a lead, Montgomery, then you're really counting on those receptions, which not say he can't do it. But the way the Seattle offense is playing, I don't see them running out to any kind of leads. It's really been frustrating for this team, for Russell Wilson. Cannot get the ground game going at all. We did see DJ Dallas kind of step up, so maybe he's the new lead back there, so he's intriguing for sure. But kind of an ugly game. So let's move on. Pittsburgh and Kansas City up next. The Chiefs, are they back? It certainly seems that way. Kansas City -8, 44.5 on this total here, Scott. So the thing that could hold them back, the thing that's holding back our entire world right now, COVID-19. Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce placed on the COVID list. So we'll see if they're able to give it a go here. Other side, you got a questionable tag on the other tight end, Pat Freiermuth. So big news here. Without Tyreek, without Kelce potentially, you could have a lot of value open up with this Kansas City team. So thoughts on this one, Steelers and Chiefs?
Yeah, especially without Kelce. I forgot the gentleman's name who I looked up yesterday, Hart or something like that. Who's going to be the tight end? He's like 2,500 on DraftKings. He's really cheap.
Talking Noah Gray?
Noah Gray, that's what it was. There you go. So, I mean, he's going to be interesting, especially for as much as, Chris, I'm a believer when a team they play a certain way of offense. If guys are in and out, they just replace the players. They generally do not, just totally forget about the tight end and not throw to him. So I think there's going to be some opportunities there for Mr. Gray. So I do like that. And I do think these Chiefs are back. They're playing some pretty good defense here recently. And I think you can't discount them. We kind of poked some fun at them that maybe they were toast, maybe everybody figured them out, but that defense has stepped up. Mahomes has obviously still been Mahomes, but without those guys, it'd be interesting to see how they do perform. But Pittsburgh, I mean, this is getting we got 2 more games left here, or 3 more games left here for Big Ben. He's got 1 more game there at home. He's got Kansas City and Baltimore. I mean, this is a spot here. If Ben's going to get something done here before he walks out of the NFL, I think this is a spot. I mean, the Chiefs are 30th, second, almost bottom of the league here, giving up points against quarterback. The receivers, they're actually 10th, but I think Deontay Johnson is a guy he's going to look at quite a bit, and I think he's going to dump the ball to Najee Harris quite a bit. So I like both these guys here. I think this has an opportunity to have quite a bit of points being scored. One of the higher over-unders. We don't even have any that are over 50. This one's at about 47. So I do like it here. Johnson, though, for me, is a guy that for Pittsburgh, they should have a narrative in this game where they are behind. So you feel as if they're going to have to throw. So I think these receivers are in a pretty good spot here for Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I agree. They're likely playing from behind. So, Claypool, Deontay, even a Ray McLeod. We'll see if Freiermuth's able to give it a go, but certainly like those guys as run back options here. Even if Kansas City's missing one, potentially both of these guys, it's still a very high-powered offense. They can get it done on the ground. So Pittsburgh's some nice playing from behind garbage time options for DFS this week. All right, last game here on the main slate. Scott, Denver and the Las Vegas Raiders. Raiders -1.5 here at home, 41.5 on the total. Drew Lock going to start at quarterback for the Denver Broncos. We've certainly seen this movie before. Generally has not played out very well, so we'll see how it goes here this week. Darren Waller remains questionable for the Vegas Raiders, so we'll see if they're able to get him back. So wrap us up here. Broncos, Raiders, what do you got?
Yeah, interesting. Beastie loves him some Lock yesterday. We talked about him a little bit. I know he does like that. We talked about some opening bets for the week. He had mentioned him. But, I mean, this one here, I just wish we'd get an opportunity to see Javonte Williams on more of an opportunity to be that lead back. I think that kid is pretty good and special. And, I do have a little bit of a bias because I collect cards. I have a pretty good one of him, as I had mentioned before, a numbered autograph card. So kind of hoping he ends up doing really well. So, but the Raiders are 30th against the running back here. So I think both guys, Melvin Gordon and Williams here, are in pretty good spots. They're also pretty weak against the tight end. So I think this is a spot here where Noah Fant could be in play here. He had 9 catches and 97 yards and a touchdown the first time against the Raiders. And actually, that was the last time he got to the end zone here as I look over his game log. But, yeah, Noah Fant for me is a guy that I'd be looking at. The Raiders, seems like Renfro is the guy now that Carr's looking at quite a bit. So he's going to always be in play here. But, yeah, give me some Noah Fant and give me maybe some Williams. But that would be in a player pool that I probably had a number of teams that I would throw Williams in there.
Yeah, and Renfro's been very consistent. I mean, the price is ticking up on DraftKings. He was a screaming value there for a while, but he's the guy that Derek Carr is looking to. And the spread seems a little bit too low. Thinking Drew Lock starting, that Vegas should at least be a -3 favorite here. So a little head scratching. I like the Raiders here, but I'll keep an eye on this number as we get closer to Sunday. Just something seems a little bit off here on this one. So that will wrap up the analysis here of the NFL. Again, it's tough with COVID. We realize that. We just wanted to get some initial thoughts down on these games. If you want our final thoughts on the NFL, who to play in DFS, who to bet on, we do that every single Sunday morning. I know it's the day after Christmas, but fairly certain that we will be here giving our NFL thoughts for this week's slate. So make sure you are coming back for that show. We'll continue to update injuries, COVID, things throughout the week. So appreciate you guys for hanging out. Hopefully you guys check out the show each and every day to get the latest news here across the sporting world and locally on the local team. So, Scott, it's that time of the show. We got some best bets to give out here. We'll stay away from the NFL, obviously. If you're looking for Thursday Night Football, we'll cover that tomorrow, top to bottom, our best bets in the NFL. You get those every single Sunday morning, but best bets here for Wednesday night, buddy. What do we got?
Well, first I'm going to be looking at the game that involves your home team here. I actually like the over 224 in this Houston and Milwaukee game. I just think that Houston has just been pretty bad here defensively. I just don't think they're very good. Obviously, with as bad as they are, they're 10-21. But I think Milwaukee here could put up a pretty good number here on them. So I do like a lot of their DFS plays, as we had mentioned earlier. And then another one here that I'm looking at, I thought about the Atlanta Hawks here in this situation, but I just can't do it, Chris, with as much trouble they're having over there. But I do like the under in that game. It's actually dropped quite a bit. It started out at 215. It's down to 209, 210 in some spots. So I'd look at the under in that Atlanta and Orlando game.
All right, I do have a spread pick on that game. I thought maybe you were going to snipe my pick here with that one, but I am going to go with the Orlando Magic here. You know, the Hawks without Trae Young, without Clint Capella, really going to be missing two key cogs. I know Orlando has been absolutely terrible this season, but it's a team with a lot of youngsters. They scrap, they fight, they claw. They may not win a lot of games. They may get blown out in a lot of games, but if I can get them plus 7.5 here with a thin Atlanta team, I'm certainly going to do that. So Orlando plus 7.5, my first pick. I'm also going to give you a favorite here. I like the Denver Nuggets tonight, Scott, in Oklahoma City. Mostly -6s. There was a 5.5 on FanDuel, so we'll say 6 for the purposes here of the video. But it's just a mismatch. Denver's kind of underperformed, dealing with injuries. Obviously, Jamal Murray been out the entire season. Michael Porter Jr. obviously not in that lineup, but Jokic is a monster. This OKC team really undermanned without a lot of talent on this team. SGA is solid, but I think this one is a mismatch. So give me the Denver Nuggets. I'm going to give you one more here. I'm going to go with the Clippers tonight in Sacramento, -5.5 here. No De'Aaron Fox is a major loss for the Sacramento Kings. Halliburton's been great. Buddy Hield been great, but I think the Clippers roll here tonight. So 3 spread picks for you again. Orlando plus the 7.5 in Atlanta. I like Denver -6 in OKC, and give me the Clippers -5.5 in Sacramento. Scott, waving that money around, buddy. Final thoughts for the people here on Wednesday. What do we got?
So to all those squirrels out there in front of the house, congratulations. And to the rest of you, let's get us some lunch money and continue on. And Chris, I'll see you at the stores.
Sounds good, buddy. I'll be out there shopping for sure. Hopefully we got some extra dollars in our pocket. Make that Christmas a little extra fancy and nice for the wife, for the kids. But best of luck to everybody out there. Thank you so much for watching. Again, follow us on Twitter at Woodward Bets. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe and like the video. Hit that thumbs up button if you are watching on Twitch. Thank you for that. Or if you are on your favorite podcast feed, we thank you there as well. For Scott, for our boy Spencer behind the glass, I am Beer. We are Woodward Bets. Thank you so much for watching. Best of luck in your bets tonight. And we'll catch you tomorrow.